Hey guys. This is part 6 of What If Shikamaru was the main character. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 26, Drowning in Air, Amigekure. Now, Pain said, turning to the rest of the Akatsuki, does anyone have something actually worthwhile to tell me? There was a muted pause throughout the whole room before Sasori finally spoke up. Sunigekure no Sato is no longer in possession of the Ichibi, Sasori said. Their reparation fees for the failed invasion of Konoha included transfer of their only Jinchuriki. The Kazakege's youngest son is now a hostage, hidden away in some unknown location. Wait, so Konoha has Suna's Jinchuriki now? What? Haiden asked. Sasori nodded. Haiden rolled back his heels and whistled. Wow. Your village is made of a bunch of spineless wimps, if they had to give up their tailed beast to that lot of peace-loving tree-huggers. No wonder you left. Speak for yourself. Weren't you born in a tourist town? Sasori replied icily. Let's try to stay on topic, Itachi said quickly. Remind me, where are the Jinchuriki all distributed again? I know when the first Hokage was around, he gave the 1 tail and 8 tails to Sand. Kakuzu began. Then 2 and 7 went to Cloud, 3 and 6 went to Mist, and 4 and 5 went to Rock. Meaning, they kept the 9 tails for themselves. Yes, that was implied when the 9 tails exploded in Konoha. Idiot, Haiden snarked. Shut up, Kakuzu muttered. As far as I know, Cloud lost the 7 tails to Waterfall when I was still there, but then they stole the 8 tails from Suna not long after. The 6 tails Jinchuriki went rogue. The positions of 4 and 5 are sketchy. They are still affiliated with Rock, but only very loosely. Cloud will be the hardest to get, Kisame mused. Their Jinchuriki are both respectably treated and well trained. They are also both grown adults and have mastered their beasts. The others do not have the same connection with their villages. Regardless, the Leaf is the easiest target. Loyal or not, they still haven't mastered their power. Whoever their 2 Jinchuriki are, they will be young and untrained, and one of them is a prisoner of war, not an actual citizen. Itachi grunted tonelessly. That would be a fair assumption. Enough, Pain interrupted, and the room fell silent. This meeting is adjourned. All of you, get out of here and return to your duties. I have some thinking to do. The room cleared in a matter of seconds save for 2 people. One of them was Conan. And the other, well, Pain had no intention of conversing with unless absolutely necessary. That was their cordial relationship. Pain did not answer unless spoken to, because all the power in the world didn't change the fact that Toby was an annoying little shit. Luckily, Toby didn't seem at all inclined to mess with him today, and for once Pain was able to plan with ease. By the time the sun rose the next morning, he had a new set of orders ready. The polished kunai, the second of the 2 favorite hangouts of the Konoha Jonin Circle. This bar was located on the other side of the rusty kunai, and was ironically run by the same old war veteran, although, interestingly enough, he no longer seemed disabled when distributing drinks to that side of the room. Now, why they sometimes went to the rusty kunai, and why they sometimes went to the polished kunai, Asuma had no idea. Though the polished kunai was much more tastefully decorated and well kept than the rusty kunai, both of them took their alcohol from the same basement. He supposed that the regulars who arrived first simply picked one side of the same bar by random, and all of the people who arrived later simply congregated around the side that already had their friends in it. Kakashi, he greeted his old friend warmly. Good to see you back. You're looking a little worse for wear, Kurenai observed. I've had better days, Kakashi admitted. So what happened? We haven't heard anything about you other than that you were really badly hurt. No one else could tell us anything either. At this, Genma shot Asuma a sour look. And the people who could wouldn't. Look, I promised the old man I wouldn't, all right? Asuma said. We did hear something about the Toad Sage and the Slug Princess coming back to town, though, Aoba interjected sneakily. As well as the 3rd person of their team dying. You didn't have anything to do with that, did you? Did you, Hataki? Did you? What? Who? Where? Kakashi sat up straight, looking around wildly. Asuma groaned. Look, just ignore him. And scratch all that business with my old man's old students. What the hell happened to you? Kakashi answered lazily, immediately discarding his earlier tension and relaxing back into a pose of exaggerated nonchalance. The fallout from a bunch of the stupid shit I normally do finally caught up to me. Really? Genma asked. What happened? Things. What sort of things? Stuff. What sort of stuff? Things. Kakashi, Kurenai whined, holding her head. Please. It's too early for this. It's like 6 in the evening, Kakashi said innocently. Any time is too early for Kakashi time, Asuma groaned, tipping back a glass of extra strong sake, hoping that by the time Kakashi really started whipping out the mindfuck no jutsu he'd be drunk enough to escape the worst effects. Come on, Kakashi, tell us, Reita said. Look, it's just really stupid stuff that I really don't want to talk about, Kakashi sighed. That's fine, Asuma said quickly. But, no buts, Genma. If the man doesn't want to talk, then just let him be. There's plenty of other subjects of conversation that don't center around why the hell Hataki upped and disappeared for basically a month. We can talk about something else. Capiche? Kakashi shot him a grateful look. Thanks, Asuma, no problem. I owe you that much, at the very least. Sure, Genma sighed dejectedly. How about we do something else, Asuma suggested. Like complain about our genin teams. Oh, I like that. Kakashi sat up straight like an attentive schoolchild, a twinkle in his eye. Sakura's still wearing her red silk dress, Kurenai whined, jumping on the train immediately. A red silk dress. I did so much work on her. I even managed to make her start taking her training seriously by telling her Sasuke will only love you if you make him acknowledge you first, but she won't. Stop wearing that dress. Kakashi, what's your secret? How'd you get Ino to stop? Oh, Kakashi said absent-mindedly. I just kept shoving her under the bus until she caved in and gave up. I know, but really, what did you do? Kurenai pressed. I want specifics. I just told you, Kakashi said innocently. I shoved her under the bus. And in front of carts. And into mud puddles. And scummy lakes. And piles of manure. You ruined her clothes just to make her stop wearing them? Kurenai asked. Hey, I didn't do anything, Kakashi protested, holding up both his hands. They were all mere accidents. Training-related things, you understand? Her fault for not wearing appropriate attire. Kurenai scratched her head as she mulled over this information. The Chunin exam finals are tomorrow, Genma reminded them. Bets are still open. All of your kids have really good stats. Do you guys want to bet on them? 1,000 Ryo that both Naruto and Ino win their first fight, but none of them get promoted to Chunin, Kakashi answered automatically. Asuma glanced at Kakashi. Are you sure it's okay for us to bet on our own teams? Kurenai shrugged. Shino, I think, has a good chance against Ino. He's a smart boy. And I've trained Sakura to the best of my ability against the Byakugan. But Niji Hyuga is a very talented and intelligent young man. It's a toss-up. Doesn't seem fair to the Genjutsu users, does it? Asuma asked. At least you've got 2 kids in the finals, though. I only have Sasuke, but I think he has a good chance of making it through. Kurenai put her chin in her hand. Sheesh. I still can't believe all 3 of Guy's kids managed to make it. I do believe that at least one of my kids will make it past the first round, though. What the hell? 1,000 Ryo that Kakashi will win some money. You're not going to bet on your own kids? Genma asked. I have faith in my genin. But I also like money, Kurenai explained. How does that even work? Genma asked. Kurenai shrugged. If Naruto and Ino win, he'll make money. If Naruto and Ino lose, he'll scam someone out of their money anyway. So, Asuma said, trying to diffuse the awkward silence. What did you do with them today, Kakashi? You weren't around to train them for the whole month, right? I remember seeing Ino and Shikamaru training with their parents, and then you had some other guy train Naruto. Kakashi shrugged. I just gave them the bell test today. Aren't you supposed to give them the test on the first day or so? Asuma asked. Well, I gave it to them again. Why? Because why? Because why? Because a glare from Kurenai silenced him. Because I felt like it. Asuma ran a hand through his hair. What happened? Kakashi raised an eyebrow at him. What makes you think something happened? Because something always happens whenever you're around, Hataki, Asuma groaned. I don't know what you're talking about, Kakashi said, stealing a sip from the glass of a group of younger jonin sitting a few people down from them. Not 2 seconds later, the victim of his alcohol theft had noticed the missing volume, and proceeded to loudly accuse his friend of drinking from the wrong glass. Kakashi, what happened? Kurenai sighed. Why does everyone keep asking me that same question? Kakashi protested. You know why, Asuma said. You know what I think? Kakashi asked. I think that you 2 are ganging up on me. What makes you say that? Asuma asked. It's all part of your little conspiracy, Kakashi explained dramatically, complete with narrowed eyes and shifty hand movements. You thought I wouldn't notice, but I'm on to you too. See, you guys keep asking me these questions, one after another, because you actually don't want me here. You're trying to annoy me into leaving, so that you two can finally have some alone time to converse with each other. Because when I'm here, you guys have to talk to me, as a mutual friend, but when I'm gone, that obstacle disappears and, oh, for love of the Rikudo, she is not my girlfriend. Asuma said hotly. Look, can we talk about something else? Kurenai added. See, you guys are agreeing with each other again. Kakashi pointed out triumphantly. Right, Genma? They're ganging up on me. Genma was too busy laughing to dispute that claim. See, he sees it too. I believe we were talking about the kids, Asuma groused. Oh, and there's kids involved now. Asuma, I didn't realize. Asuma threw up his hands. You know what I meant. Our students. Students? Me? Really? Kakashi took a sip of his drink, and the mask went back in place before any of them could see anything. Huh. I've been wondering why there were short people following me around for the better part of the year. Kurenai wrinkled her nose. Don't try to pull that on me, Kakashi. I see you and those kids messing around in Training Ground 3 every morning. What's Training Ground 3 again? The place that you commandeered specifically for use as a meeting headquarters for Team 7 members only, even though all non-fenced-off training grounds of Konoha are supposed to be open to the public, Kurenai reminded him. Oh. Right. That. Kakashi took another sip of his drink, once again, too fast to see under the mask. There's no more Training Ground 3. What are you talking about? I said there's no more Training Ground 3. Kakashi lifted a shot glass up to his lips, and then suddenly slammed it back down on the counter in realization. Holy shit, you guys. There's no more Training Ground 3. Whoa, slow down, man. Asuma said quickly, grabbing Kakashi by the elbow before he could bolt. No more Training Ground 3? No more Training Ground 3? What do you mean, there's no more Training Ground 3? That place is literally an empty grass field. How can there be no more Training Ground 3? Yeah, about that, Kakashi said sheepishly. Apparently, the headhunter jutsu doesn't refill the spaces you leave behind after you return above ground. They all stared at him. It's okay though, Kakashi added quickly. I'm making them clean it up, so it's all cool, you know. Nothing to worry about. Still a stunned silence. Only you, Kakashi. Asuma sat there, nursing his drink. Only you would be able to destroy an empty field. That wasn't me. That was my genin. Kakashi protested. Everything was completely fine until Naruto stepped on it. Same difference, Kurenai argued. Look, Genma. They're agreeing with each other again. For the last time, Hataki, she is not my girlfriend. I didn't say she was your girlfriend. I just mentioned that you two happen to agree a lot. Why? Kakashi grinned. You seem pretty vehement on denying that she's your girlfriend. Maybe you're in denial. That's not healthy, Asuma-san. It really isn't. Oh, for the love of heaven, shut up, my beloved and esteemed rival. We meet again. I have heard that your genin team soused in destroying an entire training field in less than 10 seconds. So I shall have my team destroy 10 training fields in less than 1 second, and if they cannot, then I shall do 1001 finger push UPS. And if I cannot do 1001 finger push UPS, then I shall run 1000 laps around Konoha on my butt. And if I cannot run 1000 laps around Konoha on my butt, then I shall do 1000 photo sessions with the Seashell Bikini Swimsuit Company. Kakashi disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Kurenai retched onto the floor, and Asuma contemplated taking his own kunai to the forehead. The Nara clan compound. Once again, I was back at the campfire, stuck between the flickering flames and a rabbit, but I was tired. I was so tired. And to think I was complaining of not having enough to do just a short while ago. Well, now we were back to normal, kind of. Except for the rabbits. I was growing to hate the sight of the damn things. Maybe if I focused on this tonight, I could really follow Anko's advice. Because logically it was good advice. I wanted to listen to her, so badly. It was like that past week of me not being able to train, and going around snooping instead, had opened up this new compulsive little part of me that hadn't been there before. Or perhaps it had always been there, and it was only strong enough to show its face now. That was the nice thing about training. It kept me busy, it helped me forget about the other stuff. Those who walk the shadows. Are you all right, Shikamaru? My father asked. We can't continue if you're not feeling well. No. I can do this, I insisted. I already took too much time off. I need to pull myself back together. Don't pretend you were sitting around all day like the medics told you, my father said, a teasing lilt to his voice. I saw you staying up way past your bedtime all those nights with a big pile of books. Don't tell Mom, I cut in quickly, and he laughed. Since when have I ever? Then, he sobered up. In all seriousness, Shikamaru, don't overwork yourself. I reserve the right to halt our training sessions if I think you need it. He sat down on the log, and pulled out another rabbit. Ideally, you'd master this as soon as possible and then never use it again. But the way this generation attracts trouble. Orochimaru. Sand. Cloud. Konoha, I said, the words coming out like a familiar prayer. Anything else? There is always something worse out there, Shikamaru. If only I knew what they were. He closed his eyes and put his head on his knees. I know you hate me for not telling you anything, Shikamaru, but some things are just too dangerous for you to know right now. At least right now, you have plausible deniability, should anything happen. What sort of father would I be, if I took that away from you? Something about that sounded extremely familiar, but I had no idea what, and it was driving me absolutely nuts. Tell you what, Shikamaru, my father sighed. When you master this technique, not just learn it, master it, and show me that you can properly control it without supervision, I'll tell you everything you need to know. Fine. Information that must otherwise remain confidential, he added. Of course, information I planned to find out anyway, I thought, but I didn't tell him that. God, I hated this technique. It was an undignified conglomeration of contradictions. I couldn't practice it extensively, not in the same way I hammered at ninjutsu until I got them down, because I couldn't work when my father didn't allow me to, and yet I still had to master it, because of my father's added incentive, and also because not being able to do so personally offended me. Tonight was supposed to be warm, and yet all I could feel when I stared at the rabbit was fear. It was illogical. I knew it was illogical. It was a rabbit, for the love of whatever. Sure, wild animals could be aggressive, and a rabbit could do plenty of damage if it felt threatened, but this one was several meters away from me and stuck in a snare besides. I could easily kill it with a kunai before anything happened. No. I wasn't afraid of the rabbit. But I was. But I wasn't. I wasn't afraid of the rabbit killing me, like I might be of a hungry tiger. It was just, every time I practiced this technique, I had the feeling that there was something else there. Enko was right. I had to check myself. My success with Izumo and Konohamaru was going to my head. Baby steps. It's not enough to be clever, you have to be wise. And wise people don't overload themselves. Oh, but it was just so difficult to leave things be. I thought I had more self-control than this. I really did, Kakashi-sensei. You know. Naruto. You're really going to leave them alone? You're really going to just let something like this go? You can't. What's more important? Keeping them safe, or hiding in a box inside your own mind because you're too afraid to take action? You've already started turning the wheels, and there's no stopping it now. No, more than that, you've been on the wheel the entire time, and only now you've realized it was turning. And now that you know the wheels are turning, how can you unlearn that? I was like my mother. Always a compulsive need to act. The thing was, I couldn't for my life understand why any of what I was doing could be bad. I mean, of course driving myself crazy was never the point of that, but it was absolutely preposterous to compare me to Orochimaru. I could make a list right now of what not to do. No kidnapping orphans. No experimenting on humans. No torture or sadism. Easy. This was just to make sure Orochimaru wouldn't come after my friends again. As soon as I knew for certain that he was caught and gone, I would rest easy, and put this all behind me, and relax like a normal person. Unless, of course, another problem sprang up. Then I'd just take care of that one when the time came. If only we could all just... He trailed off, looking up. He sounded extremely defeated and sad. Let me guess, everyone in the world should just stop all this and take up cloud watching just like you, right? I smiled. Exactly. Like that. Or stargazing if you prefer, my father said, gesturing at the sky. The stars move even more slowly than clouds. I like that. He turned to me. Well, enough of that. Are you ready? I nodded. As ready as I'll ever be, he nodded. Then let's get started. I readied my shadow. The chakra slid from my fingertips to my feet. It ran down my back in an icy trail, bleeding along the dark earth, as slick as oil and as thick as blood. Unlike the other cage main techniques, there is no true time limit since it does not require a continuous stream of chakra to maintain. To be honest, it's not truly a chakra construct either. It requires chakra to start the process, but once it's going, it's only a matter of your own strength of will, within your own mind, and that has nothing to do with chakra at all. My father had told me, the first night we had tried it. And unlike the Yamanaka Jutsu, It doesn't leave the user defenseless, but there are some very serious side effects that you must always be aware of. The rabbit twitched. When you split the consciousness, Shikamaru, you also split your sanity. This is why you cannot use this technique as freely as the Yamanaka do with their own. Because their technique requires a continuous stream of chakra, they are always connected with their own body even when in someone else's. This form of possession, on the other hand, provides no such safeguard. It curled up on itself. Why is it necessary to split the consciousness, then? I had asked. Wouldn't the whole mind work better for a complete mental takeover? It tried to run home, but could not. In order for a complete mental takeover to take place, there can be no continuous stream of chakra from the remote user. Your mind must be independent of you, and wholly attached to its new host. If there is no continuous stream of chakra, what else can your mind use to find its way back home? It was white, its other half. Its missing piece. The only semblance of itself it still has. I closed my eyes and focused on my shadow. The last several attempts had ended in failure, which my father had expected. I could pinch my shadow down to an almost invisible thread, but when it came to the separation, I was at a complete loss. I would always end up blacking out and waking up in my own bed in the morning, completely exhausted. It was just impossible, my logical mind supplied, to separate the shadow of one object into two pieces without cleaving the object itself in two. And I was not really keen on cutting myself apart. I thought back to the time when my father was teaching me the shadow clutch and the shadow threads, and how I had the same trouble trying to figure out how to get the shadows off the ground at first. It was all about the chakra and the mental will, except that this technique, if done right, according to my father, should barely use any chakra at all. Just a little bit, for the final snip, to separate the pieces, and then the rest was up to you. A literal split of the human consciousness, embodied in a structure created by the absence of light. I heard myself breathe, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in. I heard the rabbit's heartbeat. Thump, 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 thump. Wait. There. Right there. A flicker of light in the middle of the shadow, a crack in the fabric of darkness. Wait, minus. Almost there. And then the sea of oily bloody ink spilled back down upon me, from the treetops all the way down to the earth. One massive absence of light. You cannot run. You cannot hide. Not from me, for I am a shadow. 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1 whole, says the rabbit. What? I blacked out. Chapter 27, New Arrivals. The Chunin exam finals. The pit. You should just give up, Niji said. You're nothing but a silly girl from a no-name family. You cannot possibly hope to defeat me. Keep talking. I dare you, Sakura replied, crossing her arms behind her back. Those who are weak are destined to be weak. My eyes can see through any genjutsu you are planning to use. Give up. You can't win. Say that after you've beaten me, she hissed. Foolish little girl, he sighed. Show me how pathetic you are. Sakura held her breath, put together her fingers, and moved. The stance. Kurenai was praying as hard as she could, to every god she had never believed in before. Niji had been ruthless in his treatment of Kiba. It seemed he wasn't going to make an exception for Sakura, either. But Sakura was a smart girl, and together, they had spent the entire month coming up with a plan specifically for going up against the Hyuga. Step 1 was to get out of range and stay out of range. Sakura's taijutsu wasn't the best, and Kurenai admittedly was in a less than stellar position to teach her, being not very physically inclined herself. If Niji managed to get within striking distance, it would be all over. The only way Sakura had any chance of beating him was to get out of the way and act at a distance. Which was easier than it sounded. There were plenty of things lying around the arena that could be used for a quick substitution. More concerning was the fact that the Byakugan was a visual jutsu that could not be fooled. Therefore, it served to reason that any attacks against it should focus on a different sense, like auditory genjutsu, Kiba realized, covering his ears. By his side, Akamaru was whining softly. Kurenai produced a pair of earmuffs for the two. No one else in the audience would be affected, thankfully, as Sakura's chakra control was good enough to keep the focus of the technique on Niji. It was only bad luck that Kiba's hearing was just that good. This particular genjutsu caused no hallucinations. It simply focused on balance and physical paralysis. Being able to see what was wrong wouldn't help him in this case, nor would breaking the genjutsu completely fix the situation. Auditory effects could last long after the technique itself had been stopped, as Niji found out the hard way when neither a Kai command nor self-injury returned his sense of balance to him. Smart idea, Asuma grinned, watching Niji drop to the ground drunkenly. To his side, Shikamaru smiled in approval. With both his teammates and all 3 members of Team Guy competing, he was left sitting with his old friend Choji. The only member of the Rookie 9 not either in the competitor's box or with them was Hinata, who was sitting with the rest of the Hyuga clan. It doesn't matter if he knows where she is or what genjutsu she's using if he can't reach her. Of course, if Niji had given up that quickly, that would have been a bit boring. Sakura threw a few weapons, but he wasn't so weakened enough yet that he couldn't deflect them, so she was back where she started. He struggled back to his feet and formed a gentle fist stance. Kurenai raised an eyebrow. Sakura was on the other side of the arena, and here he was, unable to take more than 2 steps without falling over. What was he planning? Secret technique. Great heavenly rotation. What the heck is that? Kiba asked. Obviously, Shikamaru sighed. It involves greatness, the heavens, and rotation. Choji coughed. Down in the pit, Niji had transformed himself into a wild spinning force field of pure chakra. Sakura, who so far had been holding up her genjutsu quite well, was blown into the opposite wall from the sheer power generated by his rotation. There was a nasty-sounding thump as she hit the concrete, and Kurenai held her breath. For a second, she feared that Sakura had been knocked unconscious. But then the girl managed to struggle to her feet, bracing herself against the wall. Good positioning. The wall will allow her extra support against his technique. However, the great heavenly rotation had been a risky move for both. Sakura, on one hand, could no longer move so freely around the arena, but she was still at an advantage, for Niji had tried to counter a technique that had already been messing up his sense of balance, as most auditory genjutsu did, by spinning around extremely quickly. The feeling would have been akin to doing triple axel jumps while seasick. It was a wonder that he was still standing. The boy must have had a cerebellum of steel to have not keeled over of dizziness yet. What will you do now, Sakura? Niji was now kneeling on the ground in the center of the arena, head on his knees. He might have survived her first genjutsu, but he definitely wouldn't survive her second one. So Niji zipped forward, intending on ending the fight quickly. Sakura was fast. Niji was faster. His fingertips connected with Sakura's stomach, 1, 2, and then garishly painful flashes of light flooded the arena, and he doubled backwards in shock, his eyes scrunched shut in pain. Niji was definitely more skilled than Sakura when it came to physical combat. He could have won. He should have won. He would have won. But there was a tiny problem. When the match had first started, he had been standing there, talking, for about 30 seconds after they had been cleared to start fighting. 30 seconds. 30 whole seconds for Sakura to turn the battlefield in her favor. Charging a light bomb genjutsu only took 10. The ringing began again, louder this time, and Niji fell over, retching. Sakura hadn't escaped the fight unscathed. Niji had managed to get up to 8 palms or so before he had fallen over, but winners were decided by the last person standing. It was quite unfortunate, really, that the 64 palms took 64 moves to complete, and blinding flares only took 1. The box. Shino vs. Ino is next. Hey, that's actually pretty funny, Naruto snickered dazedly. Shino vs. Ino. It rhymes. Get it, Ino? It rhymes. Ah, shut up, Naruto, Ino muttered, punching his arm. Unlike you, some of us didn't have clones to divide up all that work with. Yeah, well, my clones did most of the work anyway, so your argument is invalid, Naruto retorted, rubbing his shoulder. See, I made like 50 clones, and they each. Can we not? Ino groaned. My brain hurts. And considering that she was about to go out there and fight Shino Aburame, that was not good. It wasn't just the fact that she had a thing against creepy crawly bugs and other stuff. The Kikeichu in and of themselves were dangerous opponents, even without someone as sneaky as Shino to control them with. She'd need all the smarts she had, if she was going to hide from that swarm. She wished Shikamaru was here. She could get some last-minute advice from him. But there was nothing she could do. Only participants were allowed in the competitor's box. Shino Aburame and Ino Yamanaka, please report to the pit. The announcer yelled. Good luck, Ino! Naruto called. But studs like us don't need luck, right? Sure, Ino whispered, looking like she was going to throw up. Just think about it this way. Naruto grinned. If you win, the bugs won't get you. If you lose, the bugs will. That's all there is to it. She glared at him. Gee, thanks. That makes me feel so much better. No problem, Ino, calm down, Naruto told her calmly. They're just insects. Look who's talking, Ino snapped. Remember that one time with the snails? Naruto groaned. Oh, come on. That was one time. In 3 seconds the match would start. 2, 1, the stands. Shino did not make the same mistake as Niji. As soon as the proctor dropped his hands, his insects immediately started swarming. Kurenai crossed her fingers. She smiled proudly at Sakura, even though she probably couldn't see her from the box. Would it be too much to ask for 2 for 2? Ino Yamanaka, I know, is a clever one, but Shino should be able to outsmart her, right? Ino immediately threw a smoke bomb. It wasn't just any smoke bomb, however. Judging from the nasty smell, she had deliberately filled this one with the strongest bug spray she could find, but the insects kept coming anyway. Kurenai smiled to herself. This is your time to shine, Shino. I expected you to try something like that, Shino explained. But we in the Aburaim clan breed all of our insects to be chemical resistant. Ino, however, showed no signs of worry, which was good. It would be a little boring for the spectators if a Konoha shinobi lost so embarrassingly quickly, even if her opponent was another Konoha shinobi. Not that Kurenai was the type of person who liked to draw out a fight just for her own amusement, but longer battles were usually more interesting to watch, and things that were interesting to watch were good for business. Potential civilian customers didn't always understand the ideal shinobi battle, that is, a 2-millisecond hit and run, preferring something that went a little more toward the cool factor. A single spark was all it took, and the entire cloud was ablaze. When the smoke cleared, a great number of the Kikeichu lay upon the ground, incinerated. Never trust canned aerosols. Kurenai nodded. As expected. Now what will you do, Shino? I had my bugs spy on you during your training, he explained. You seem to be very proficient in fire jutsu, which my insects are not fully resistant to, so I trained them in maneuvers to protect each other from the worst burns. Maneuvers that also allow them to hide from view and move into the proper position against the enemy at the same time. Take a look, and suddenly, thousands, no, hundreds of thousands, of Kikeichu beetles burst out of the ground in a great hive beneath Ino's feet. Ino shrieked and keeled over, unconscious, while Shino stood there and watched calmly. Well, that was kind of lame, Kiba sniffed. Shino's bugs didn't even start eating her, and she's already fainted. No, that can't be right, Kurenai muttered. If she's unconscious, why hasn't the proctor called the match? He must be waiting for something, Asuma said, staring at Genma. She might be squeamish, but she's a forceful girl. She wouldn't give up so easily. What's she up to? Kurenai continued to reason out to herself. Shino paused to take a moment to push up his glasses with his finger, only to be trapped midway. Ah. I see. So the explosion was just a diversion. You were really aiming for me, and not my bugs. An intelligent strategy, to end the match. Indeed, now that Kurenai looked more closely, there were little flares of sunlight scattered all around the arena, glinting off the reflective surfaces of the many coils of ninja wire that Ino had wrapped Shino up with. His arms were effectively pinned to his sides. Even though his opponent was out of commission, she had still managed to paralyze him temporarily. But I don't get it, she whispered. Was that the only part of Ino's plan? Did she really lose that easily? Shino was still talking. Unfortunately for you, Ino, I do not require movement to control my bugs. We, the Aburaim, can communicate telepathically with our own hives. Telepathically? Kurenai turned back to Shino, who was still frozen in place. Suddenly, the bugs retreated from Ino, and she gasped. Of course. How could she be so stupid? Shino's opponent was a Yamanaka. Kurenai jumped to her feet, and, at the same time, from the competitor's box, she could hear Sakura come to the same conclusion, if her yelling was any indication minus. Shino! No! Move out of the way, she's using her. But it was too late. I forfeit. Shino yelled, uncharacteristically loudly, and immediately after that, Ino regained consciousness and started to spastically twitch and hop around in place, complaining about taking 2 showers after this or something of that nature. Winner, Ino Yamanaka, said Genma, concluding the match. Wait, I'm confused. Kiba scratched his head. Was she just pretending to faint? What did she do to him? Why did Shino forfeit? He had her, that was the trouble, Choji said, munching on his chips. She had him, too. Huh? Kiba asked. The mind transfer jutsu, Shikamaru told him. The Yamanaka technique. Kiba's mouth dropped open. Oh wow. Damn, what she did was really weird actually. The mind transfer jutsu isn't normally supposed to be used in combat, since it's super slow and takes a lot of time to return to the original user's body if it misses. You're only supposed to use it against a restrained opponent, usually a Naro's shadowbind. Choji ripped open a new bag and continued eating. She didn't have that, so she got him in that wire trap instead. When she fainted, we thought it was because of the bugs, but she was really just using her technique. The Kikeichu take at least a few minutes to suck someone's chakra dry, even a small genin, And Ino knew that, Shikamaru explained. Meanwhile, the mind transfer jutsu is slow, but not that slow. It takes maybe a few seconds to take effect. Shino's problem was thinking that Ino had actually fainted, and thinking that he had won already. He was a pretty smart fighter, but he neglected to account for her using her non-combat techniques. He might have been more prepared to struggle then. The trap she made was a good trap, though. He wouldn't have escaped it in time, anyway, Choji shrugged. Unless he could order his beetles to chew through the wire in only a few seconds somehow. There were still many ways this could have gone wrong, though, Shikamaru pointed out. He could have somehow used Kawarimi and escaped, or replaced himself with a bug clone, anything. Ino had been counting on the fact that the bug spray explosion would force him to stand still and take cover while she made the rest of the traps. She had been planning to use the mind transfer jutsu from the very beginning. Risky, but it worked. Oh well, Kurenai thought. You can have everything in life. It was an impressive fight, anyway. They were really going back and forth, not just in jutsu, but in planning, too. I'm just not sure the rest of the audience got what was going on. Contrasting with Shino Aburame versus Ino Yamanaka, the fight, more of a brawl, really, between Sasuke Uchiha and Rock Lee was right up the spectators' alley. As soon as Genma had dropped his hand, it had basically devolved into one enormous pissing match between two alpha males. One of them the last Uchiha, and the other a taijutsu monster, ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu. Whereas Lee could only use the last skill, Sasuke definitely had the upper hand in this one, but that didn't mean it was going to be any easier than his fight with Sakura Haruno. Being able to use techniques didn't mean anything if they didn't connect, and Lee had only gotten faster since the preliminaries. Sasuke was receiving as much damage as he dealt. Both fighters were at an impasse now. Sasuke had a wider range of skills, but Lee's speed caused Sasuke's attacks to miss more often than not. If this became a matter of endurance, then Guy's student would definitely win. Sasuke needed to start making any tactical decisions now if he wanted to have any hope at winning. And then it started, when Lee missed a punch and hit the wall. Sasuke's going to win, Shikamaru declared. How do you know? Kiba asked, squinting. He's finally using his Sharingan properly, Shikamaru explained. Lee is much faster than him, so it'll be hard to predict where Lee will be at any given moment. But Sasuke can predict where Lee will be, and that's what makes all the difference. More specifically, Lee has to get close to Sasuke to land a hit, so all Sasuke has to do is cast a minor genjutsu at that exact moment to distort Lee's perception so that he misses. Even though Lee is most likely better trained in dispelling genjutsu after his loss to Ino, he still can't stop to break out of an illusion while in the middle of a punch. Few people can, and in the middle of an offensive attack is when Lee is the most vulnerable defensively, Choji realized, stuffing a handful of crisps into his mouth. There was another loud crack, as Lee's fists, now bloody, collided with the wall again. Sasuke ducked downwards, and managed to catch Lee in the stomach with the heel of his sandal. Dirty move, Kiba commented. There was a great explosion of noise from the crowd, and they all looked down in the pit again just in time to see Sasuke finally slam exhaustedly into the ground with a fire jutsu. There's no such thing as a dirty move when you're a shinobi, Shikamaru shrugged. Lee is a very strong fighter, but he has got to get smarter about people taking advantage of his weakness if he doesn't want to die. The pit, Tenten gripped her shuriken tightly. She would have to be careful with Naruto. Having sparred with his team before, she knew that he had wind ninjutsu and shadow clones at his disposal, a big problem for a weapons user like her. Her projectile use would be highly limited today. There was no use in trying to be precise against someone who could blow all of her weapons in the wrong direction while constantly replicated himself. Every one of her attacks would have to be wide range, effective against a large number of opponents, so that even if they missed, she'd at least be able to take out several clones at once. Well, Madogai was her sensei, and never let it be known that one of his students couldn't fight in close quarters. As soon as the exam proctor dropped his arm, she let loose as many explosion tags as she could. Naruto immediately dove to the ground and covered himself with a sideways disc of swirling wind, which protected him quite well from the flying debris and heat. When the smoke had cleared, Naruto was gone, and 5 clones were in his place. Tenten narrowed her eyes. This was going to be harder than she thought. Luckily, she always came prepared with an excessive amount of weapons, and today was no different. Spiked maces were always one of her favorites. 2 clones appeared behind her, and Tenten immediately popped them both with a nice hard stab to the gut. 3 more clones surrounded her from the front, and she managed to disperse them with slightly more difficulty. Dropping back to the ground, Tenten looked around. The real Naruto had disappeared, and more clones had taken his place. She swung her weapon, and the wall of blonde collapsed in smoke. Where is he? Even if she had a Byakugan, however, she wouldn't be able to tell. All the clones were identical in both appearance and chakra distribution. It looked like she'd have to do this the long way, then brute force her way through every single Naruto until she found the one that didn't disappear at a single touch. The stands. Kiba shook his head. He's just spamming clones. That's not even a strategy. If it works, it is, Shikamaru shrugged. That's dumb. I could do that, Kiba grumbled. Naruto's tactics from earlier had not changed, except to increase the number of clones, all of which dispersed upon a single good hit from Tenten. Many more exploded in smoke when Tenten detonated another exploding tag. He did this to Choji too? If I could make clones, I could totally take him. Well, Tenten seems to be holding up really well regardless, Kurenai shrugged. It's still pretty unfair, Kiba muttered. The real Naruto has to be in there somewhere. When is he going to run out of chakra? It'll probably be a while, Kurenai said. Naruto was still pumping out his clones, and he hadn't even broken a sweat. Suddenly, there was a great roar from the crowd as Tenten managed to apprehend one of the various Narutos in the arena. This one, however, did not disperse upon contact, which only meant one thing: she had finally caught up to the real one. Tenten wasted no time wailing into him. It was at this moment that Naruto realized that he was in some deep trouble, and soon after that, he had taken to his heels and started running, Tenten hot in pursuit, the jeers of the crowd following the two of them all this time. And then suddenly, the ground collapsed in a massive explosion underneath Tenten's feet, and Naruto, just a few feet ahead of her, was the only one who had made it out of the blast range in time. Tenten, totally unprepared for an attack from underground, was out cold in a matter of seconds, blown against the back wall of the pit. Asuma groaned. Wait, how'd he do that? Kiba asked, scratching his head. He's not an earth type, is he? He didn't need to, Asuma said. There were already the ones from the third fight that Shino's bugs had dug when they were hiding from Ino's fireball. He knew he wouldn't be able to get her from the air, since she has all those weapons on her, so he decided to get her from below instead. While Tenten was distracted by the clones above ground, some more clones below ground must have been enlarging and connecting the underground caverns left by Shino's bugs. From there it was a simple matter of filling them with exploding tags. Shikamaru continued, and then, when Tenten caught him, or if he let Tenten catch him, he simply ran away, knowing that she would chase him because she was already so frustrated with all the clones he had been annoying her with earlier. Right to where he wanted him, Kurenai finished. A normal exploding tag can be dodged if seen quickly enough, but if there were tons of them crammed into empty pockets beneath the ground, you can't exactly jump away from a patch of earth that's collapsing in upon itself. Least of all at the center, the lowest point. Tenten was standing right above the spot where the tunnel was deepest when Naruto let the tags explode. It was then that Asuma realized just how utterly destroyed the pit looked after this. The whole ground was giant gaping pit, save for a few edges. He looked at Naruto, who was wincing sheepishly at the damage, and then at Shikamaru and Ino, who had both collapsed into hysterics at the state of the arena. So that was what happened to Training Ground 3, Asuma realized. Intermission, the box. I'm totally going to destroy you, Sasuke team. Just you watch, Sasuke snorted. Dope. Like you could beat me. Having seen how Naruto just fought, however, Sasuke had to grudgingly admit that facing him might actually be a challenge. Now that he was taking the energy, and he hated to admit it, but ingenuity he normally put into pranks and focusing in on training, he was quickly turning into someone Sasuke thought he might respect. The thought of that was terrifying. Naruto Uzumaki, growing up? Please. It wasn't just a matter of principle. He wasn't going to be arrogant and declare that the dead last was never going to get good at anything, ever. But the thought that he and all his classmates were quickly leaving their childhoods behind was sobering. What the hell do you care? You haven't been a child since the day your family was all murdered in their beds. Hey! Say that again to my face, I dare you. I'm already talking to your ugly face, idiot. What more do you want? Sasuke snapped back, the insults coming out like instinct. Over to the side, Ino and Sakura were both glowering at each other silently, each of them promising the other an extreme world of pain as soon as their match started. Their little war was no longer a matter of who got to marry him when they grew up, Sasuke realized. They were two shinobi competing against each other on matter of principle, just like he and Naruto were. Well, anything to get the two Harridans out of his hair. He turned back to Naruto. Dobe, team, Dobe, team, Dobe, smoke. Wait, what did you say? Smoke, said Naruto, sniffing the air. I smell smoke. He pointed at the treeling. Where the leaves were once green, they were now blanketed in a mass of dark clouds. The crowd was murmuring, but I could barely hear them. It was all I could do to keep my vision from going black. It was as if I was back at my house yesterday, drowning in shadow. But instead of cold, wet, inky blackness, it was now hot, dry, and smoky, and I was suffocating under the weight of thick air. Outside Konoha, Itachi Uchiha stood atop the mountainside and stared down at his former home. The world was on fire, but that had been apparent long before his flames had touched the kindling. Chapter 28: Fire and Blood. Konoha. Itachi Uchiha was a man of few sensibilities, but the ones he had made up for the rest he lacked. For example, he was not candidate of the year for environmentalism, but he loved peace, and if burning down several trees meant fulfilling his duties, he'd do it. Likewise, he didn't have many rules on his personal code of honor, what with being raised as a shinobi and all, but sometimes he liked to think he was still a good person for fun. Knowing all the death and ruin that had occurred at his hands made that an impossibility, but everyone needed a good joke now and then. Was it selfish of him, for subjecting his brother to a life of pain in the hopes that he'd be the one to deliver him a pure death in combat? Sandaime-sama, I hope you got the memo. Is it just me, or are there more ANBU around than usual today? And shit, they're really fast, Kisame swore, several meters ahead of him. They must be really paranoid if they've got that type of response time. Sandaime-sama, I guess you got the memo. They are still on high alert after the failed attack by Orochimaru. And today is the final of the Chunin exams. They mean to impress the dignitaries with their best troops on display, Itachi explained calmly. I am concealing us with my best genjutsu, and we have made it this far, have we not? I don't see why you are worried. Kisame stopped and stared at Itachi. Really? Really? What? Kisame pointed to his face. Itachi, what am I? Itachi rolled his eyes. They had done this before. Multiple times, in fact. You are a fish. That's right. I'm a fish. Maybe my mother fucked a shark or something. The point is, I'm a fish, and do you know what fish do in fire? They fry. Exactly. So how about we hurry up and get going before I turn into a giant piece of sashimi? That is grossly inaccurate. Sashimi is served raw, Itachi corrected, a small smile playing at his lips. I thought you knew that, being from the land of water. Kisame slapped his head. Shut up, Uchiha. There was another roar as the fire around them spiked even higher. Over the walls of the village, he could see a conglomeration of white masks and green jackets forming up around the gates. We have to get going. Now, Itachi nodded in agreement. Watch my back, he ordered Kisame, and together they stepped into the village to look for Naruto Uzumaki. To find him would be a difficult task. Itachi knew they would not succeed. And if he had his way, they would never succeed. Of course, Pain might be suspicious if he didn't leave at least one high-profile person dead or seriously maimed. Itachi sighed and drew his sword. The things I do for love. The Chunin exam stadium. As soon as Kakashi had seen the ANBU flooding the area, he moved to gather up his team right away. This wasn't just some simple forest fire. Knowing Kakashi's luck, the Akatsuki were here, and they were after Jinchuriki. The high ANBU presence all but confirmed that. The Ichibi was safely tucked away one of ANBU's many underground mazes, which meant that the only one available to them, standing out in the open, along with every other Chunin exam competitor, Naruto. He jumped down into the box and grabbed the boy, ignoring his indignant yelps. Then he spotted Ino and Sasuke, and understanding that they could become collateral damage if the Akatsuki wanted bait, grabbed her too. The village had already had multiple contingency plans involving Jinchuriki, even before Jiraiya returned with his disturbing reports of Akatsuki's movements. As Naruto's team leader, it was his duty to know every single one by heart. Jonin Hataki, you are supposed to be off duty, said one of the ANBU. Please, Kakashi gave the ANBU his most intimidating smile. Shut up. He didn't bother to wait for an answer. He had more pressing matters to deal with than the stammered apology of a rookie. In the few seconds he had taken to secure Naruto and Ino, the moving crowd had swallowed Shikamaru up completely. Now he had a choice to make. He could either ditch Naruto and Ino, and go looking for Shikamaru, or he could trust Asuma and Kurenai to take care of him. Kakashi, Yamato said softly, take them if you like, but you have to stay with them, wherever you're going. He gripped Kakashi's shoulder hard enough that it was painful. We can't have you out in the field. Tenzo, my name is Yamato now. No arguments. Keep your children safe. If you're so worried, I'll go find Shikamaru for you. Kakashi could only nod. Shikamaru's a smart kid. He'll be okay. In this specific situation, Naruto comes first. He's in greater danger. The answer should have been obvious. And back in ANBU, Kakashi could make snap judgments like this all the time without feeling the least bit of hesitation. But for some reason, getting a genin team had eaten away at his many years of cold hard logic, and all he could feel was a massive sense of something not good, for leading away 2 of his kids to safety while leaving behind the third. ANBU Private Grounds A9. All of them had protested fiercely at being forced into hiding when they could have been out there, helping, but Kakashi-sensei would have none of it. Nor would he listen to the ANBU who were supposed to take them to their designated safe house. Instead, he took multiple turns through what Naruto knew were supposed to be restricted grounds, from his many forays into the map rooms with Shikamaru and Ino, until they finally reached their destination, an empty field surrounded by a heavily guarded chain-linked fence. Kakashi-sensei went up the gate, flanked by the few ANBU left that had managed to keep up with him, and whispered a few code words that Naruto couldn't make out. Before he knew it, all 3 of them had been introduced to a tiny cell, given about no time to compose themselves, and locked behind a slammed door. It was at this point that Naruto realized this was no standard safe house. It was a prison. Random ANBU number 1 noticed this too, and protested. Protocol says. I know what protocol says, I wrote it. Kakashi-sensei snapped. What? Protocol is wrong on purpose. Itachi Uchiha is a former ANBU. The established safe houses are the first place they'd look, you morons. Gone was his normal, mild-mannered exterior. Here was someone who took no nonsense, and refused to allow incompetence as an excuse. He could only sit there and appreciate the horrible brilliance of his teacher's decision to hide him here instead of wherever he had originally been supposed to go. The concept of a jail, that is, to keep someone inside, was so well ingrained in people's minds that many tended to forget that they were also convenient for keeping people out as well. Just like how Tozuna, the bridge builder from Wave, had been protected from Gado's men by Konoha's prisons, so, too, would they be protected from the invaders here. Unlike the pitch-black, dripping dungeons of movies, this prison compound was very well designed. Lit around the clock with bright fluorescent lights, the place had an ultra-sanitized look, and it could have very easily been mistaken for a hospital had it not been for the steel-reinforced doors lining the hallways, and the weird color of paint. It was neither completely black nor completely white, but rather an off-gray, greenish tinge. Ino identified it as glow-in-the-dark paint. It's the same stuff I paint stars on my bedroom ceiling with, except it's stronger. This must be a backup plan for light, in case someone tried cutting off the generators. I can't imagine having to sleep through this, though. It must be horrible. On the bright side, the facilities were clean enough. Very new and well-maintained, actually. It was a dreary location, but not exactly the torture chambers he'd heard horror stories about. Who are our neighbors? Naruto wondered. What had they done to be assigned to such a well-built and better-guarded prison? Condemned to sleepless days and nights, totally isolated from the world, with little hope of their existence being remembered, let alone rescue or escape. He thought of prisoners of war, valuable enough to be used as future bargaining chips, but not valuable enough to be remembered until they were needed. Men who were intelligent enough that they could not be released, but not strong enough to warrant execution on the spot. Did other villages have similar constructs? Were they better or worse? How many other shinobi had Konoha also similarly abandoned to enemy villages? The will of fire supposedly never gave up a comrade, but there was always the chance that someone who was left for dead by an injured team without the strength or resources to take them back home was instead picked up by foreign scouts before they drew their last breath. It must have been a horrible existence, to be imprisoned for life when your only crime was being abandoned by a village you fought for. Naruto leaned back and closed his eyes, trying to think of something else, anything else, that was a little less depressing. Sorry for the location, Kakashi-sensei's voice wafted through the tiny food slot, but this is the best place they don't know exists yet. He swore softly. I knew the Akatsuki were dangerous, but I didn't think they'd be foolhardy enough to attack the village in broad daylight like this. The Sandaime said we'd have up to another year at least. Optimistic fool. Naruto thought about the little whispers Konohamaru had been passing him all this time. He knew what they wanted from him. This is my fault. Ino put a hand on his shoulder. This changes nothing. You could be a space alien robot for all I care. A team is a team is a team. How? We didn't say anything because we didn't want to make you uncomfortable. But if you're in danger you don't have to hide anything around us, Ino said. You know? Sasuke snorted. Naruto glared at him. What? Of course she knows. Everyone with half a brain knows. It's the worst kept secret in Konoha. Adults glaring at you like you murdered babies when all you did was paint a wall. Calling you a demon under their breath? Please. He crossed his arms, grinning. Like you could be some legendary beast. You're just a dumbass. If that's your idea of comforting, you need therapy fast, Naruto shot back. He didn't want to hear anymore. He didn't care. He had Kakashi-sensei and Ino and Shikamaru. And Iruka-sensei and Yamato-sensei. He didn't need any of them. If the others wanted to be mean, then they could go ahead. Naruto had more than enough friends to counteract that. Behave, Kakashi-sensei warned. There was some yelling in the distance. Stay here. Don't kill each other. I'll be right back. His footsteps faded down the hall. Naruto leaned his head back against the wall. He was getting antsy. Trapped in a confined space, with nowhere to move, he could only imagine how terrible it must be for the Kyuubi to feel like this all the time. All he could see in his mind was the sewer, and the cage where the fox lay. Hey fox, the hell do you want? The thing was as abrasive as ever. But at least it was responding in something other than threats. Naruto had convinced it to a minor truce. Any conversation between the two of them would be carried out with reasonable responses. For Naruto, that meant he didn't have to listen to any more of the fox's cruel words, and for the fox, that meant not having to talk to Naruto for any longer than necessary. I know you hate me, but if those guys come after us, you can't let them catch you, okay? The fox grumbled. I hate you, but I guess I hate those bastards more. So we have an agreement? Fine, good. And just like that, Naruto was ejected from his own mindscape again, though with considerably less force than the last few times. If the fox was slowly descending into the territory of a half-hearted toss, then it probably meant he was making some progress. Now for his other angry cellmate, curled up in the corner away from him and Ino. Naruto opened his mouth to speak, and then closed it. He hadn't talked to Sasuke in a while, but depending on how things went he could prove to be more or less volatile than the Kyuubi. He was hedging his bets on the latter, seeing as he'd seen the human side of Sasuke after the second phase of the exams, but better safe than sorry. Conversation, Ino had taught him, went hand in hand with shogi. Just like Shikamaru planned out how to move his pieces, one must already know the direction one wanted to take a verbal exchange in before starting. You're not as much of a jerk as you used to be, Sasuke snorted. And you're not as much of an idiot as you used to be. But Naruto didn't react, so Sasuke was forced to turn to something else to pass the time with. He pulled out a kunai and began stabbing the ground aimlessly. Why are you here? Naruto interrupted. Sasuke stabbed the ground with a bit more force. Because that man is one of them. That man, the man who murdered my family, Sasuke clarified. Clang. The man who ruined my life. Clang. The man I'm going to kill. Clang. Really? Naruto asked. I have to, Sasuke whispered. Steel met concrete. I can't let this go on. I'm already too much of a liability. I have to get stronger. Clang. Back in the maze, when we were attacked by the snake, that was your sensei, wasn't it? Asuma-sensei told me I was only here because someone else took the hit. Sasuke asked. Naruto, seeing no reason to lie, nodded. See, look at me. Jonin from teams that aren't even mine are getting hurt because of me. And now I'm in here, hiding, when I should be out there, helping. Naruto thought of Hinata and Choji. Two more people who knew to be decent human beings. You care about them, don't you? Sasuke's eyebrows knitted together. Look, it's okay to admit it. I care about my teammates too, and then the jerk was back again. Shut up, Naruto. You don't have to hide around me. I get it, okay? Being alone for so long, and finally having other people in your life you can trust, you don't want to see them get hurt. Shut up, Naruto kept going. But if you want to protect them from people who might hurt them, you need to start with yourself. Clang. Sasuke slammed his entire blade flat into the wall, right by Naruto's face. I swear on my dead family, Naruto. Shut your mouth, or I will shut it for you. I thought I told you not to kill each other. They jumped. Naruto shot Sasuke a look. It was nothing, Kakashi-sensei. We were just messing around. I can hear sharpened metal on concrete. That's not messing around, Kakashi-sensei said dangerously. Put the weapon away. Fuck. He's not joking. Sasuke must have felt the same murderous vibe, because he hastily shoved his kunai back into his pouch with terrified obedience. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. Thank you for saving my life before, and for sparing it again. There was a long silence. And then the murderous voice gave way to something else. Please be safe. Including you, Sasuke. I mean it. He's scared, Naruto realized. And worried. Why is that surprising? He's human too. Maybe that was what was expected of a Jonin sensei, always calm and self-assured. Or maybe Kakashi sensei was always supposed to be one step ahead, and seemingly strange situations were in fact under his control. Or maybe that fear was always there, and it was Naruto who was getting better at reading the mask. The rest of their confinement went by in total silence. The Chunin exam stadium. It was no secret that Asuma had never felt like his father's son, even after their reconciliation. Oh, he was a skilled Jonin in his own right, but he would never be Hiruzen Sarutobi. He had not been born with a blessed mind. No matter how hard he tried, he could never keep up. When surrounded by legends and prodigies, one could easily feel lost, everything just barely out of his short reach. Anbu was shooting silent orders over his head left and right. Asuma could make out a few of them, but very poorly. 9, 2, 1, 1. He was sure they were numbers, but he had no idea what the hell they meant. The point of those complicated codes was to make sure that no one but one of their own could understand them. His father, being the Hokage, had forced him to learn a few, but they rarely stuck. There was a tug on his sleeve, and he looked down. "We have to go," Shikamaru Nara said. His eyes seemed oddly blank. "Konoha is being invaded." Before Asuma could even answer, he had already jumped his way to the top of the stadium walls, not even bothering with using the stairs, and Asuma had no choice but to follow him. "How?" Shikamaru pointed at the ANBU, flashing hand signs faster than a blink of an eye. Asuma sighed in exasperation. Leave it to Hitaki to teach his kids Black Ops signals. He wanted to be jealous that he hadn't been picked to teach the genius Nara, but really, what could the boy learn from him? Better to give him to a man who could actually challenge him. Asuma was doing well enough with 2 dojutsu and 3 noble clans. He could hardly complain. All around them, civilians were following the exit procedures in an orderly, amused fashion, commenting on the splendid organization of the village and the impressive display of ANBU communication. They thought it was just a forest fire. They honestly thought it was just a forest fire. "I thought we took care of those traitorous sand bastards," Asuma hissed, as he spotted a sign for foreign village. And another, Sharingan. It was the last one he saw before they exited the stadium, and then they were running for their lives through Konoha's alleys, though from what Asuma was still trying to figure out. "Sasuke, Orochimaru's supposed to be dead, though," Kurenai said, and Asuma nearly missed the flash of "I know something you don't" on Shikamaru's face. "It's not sand," Shikamaru told him. The hidden village in question was rain. "What does rain have to do with this?" Kurenai snapped. "Oh," Shikamaru muttered, and swore under his breath. He skidded to a stop, and Asuma followed suit. "Everything." Asuma looked up and saw red clouds on black. At first, Kisame had been confused as to why Itachi insisted that the two of them stand on discs of fire, especially after how vocal he had been about his aquatic lineage before. But then he remembered the Nara clan, and decided that he'd rather suffer dry feet later than get cut off in the middle of a fight. Kisame smiled. "Hello, friendly people of Konoha. We are looking for a little boy with blonde hair and blue eyes. Any idea where we might find him?" He was supposed to be in safe house number 9, according to the ANBU they interrogated, so either that Tsukuyami wasn't as jumped up as Itachi made it out to be, or someone didn't follow protocol. Now, how the heck were they supposed to predict the actions of an opponent when said opponent didn't even follow their own rules? Just like playing a lucky beginner at poker, Kakuzu would say if he were here. Idiot doesn't know how or when he's supposed to fold, but none of that matters if he has the highest hand. "Don't be silly, Kisame. They wouldn't know," Itachi replied. The Kyuubi's Jonin minder lied about the rules on purpose. "I do miss his little mind games," he added, almost as an afterthought. "Kakashi isn't here," the Jonin of the group said, drawing a set of strange blades. "Wind chakra. This is the Sandaime Hokage's son. We don't know where he is." "We don't know either," Itachi said. "But we know where he will be." He took a step towards the Nara boy. "They say before every fight there was always a still moment, an air of calm." That was a complete lie. They were shinobi, and shinobi were practical if anything. Kisame earned first blood before Itachi ever finished talking. From there it was nothing but a whirlwind of death and organs. He couldn't help himself. This was all Kisame had been born to do, so he might as well do it properly. The world faded out, and then all he could hear was Samahada's call for meat, pulsing in his ears in time to his heartbeat. "What do we do?" Kurenai panicked. It had been Asuma's scream of pain that yanked Kurenai out of Itachi Uchiha's paralyzing genjutsu. She woke to Kisame Hashigaki standing over him, sword raised above his shoulder, preparing for another swing, like a horrible nightmare, only real. What everyone in the world does when they see an Uchiha, Kurenai reminded herself. Go straight for the eyes. This man was infamous for a reason. It was one thing to get stabbed or incapacitated, but to see flesh actually ripped off like a thresher, it was horrifying. The sword came down. Asuma rolled over, barely holding his guts in. The sword made contact. Another sickening crunch. She heard bones break. Blood bubbling. A low gurgle. Kurenai could only describe her own scream as the most terrifying sound she'd ever heard herself make. She had always preferred painless, silent kills. She never thought she was capable of wishing so much terror and murder on someone, until now. Have no fear. She could only imagine thick vines wrapping themselves around Kisame Hashigaki's neck and squeezing until his eyeballs burst from their sockets, tightening until the thorns punctured his jugular. She wanted to see his blue face turn purple, wanted to see sand and ash clog his orifices, wanted to see him burn and freeze simultaneously, wanted to see his blood on the ground for once. The feeling of glass shattering in her face brought her back to her senses. Asuma. On the ground, broken, bleeding out. The monster of the hidden mist was staring at her with an unreadable expression, his hand bleeding. Who cut him? Nobody. He cut himself. Why? The things she imagined earlier. Nothing is imaginary to a genjutsu master. But what was the point? What was the point of any of that? Asuma was dying, Itachi Uchiha was nowhere to be seen, and the boys. She felt a glob of cold goo sink to the bottom of her stomach. The boys were gone. Kakashi is going to kill me. Then she felt a million scaly spines pierce her stomach. The last thing Kurenai remembered was trying in vain to choke the life out of one of the world's most infamous criminals with her broken fingers. She is a ferocious woman, isn't she? Itachi Uchiha asked me, glancing at Kurenai-sensei. Barely a few seconds had passed. This was just like Orochimaru all over again. Only Itachi Uchiha was smarter, and even more dangerous. I couldn't move. Itachi Uchiha stared at me curiously. The fires still burned beneath his feet. I did not have the luxury of using the same tactic as I had in the maze. I did have more advanced shadow jutsu to draw upon, but there was too much light around. Their effects would be negated, nor was I stupid enough to engage Itachi in a ninjutsu battle. They call you a genius, too, Itachi purred, strolling in a circle around me. A prodigy, perhaps with the capability to surpass even me. I could see Choji, also frozen under the effects of his genjutsu. Well? Show me what you can do, Shikamaru Nara. I did not let his false praise flatter me. Strategy was one thing, but combat with bloodline limits was another. They're only here because they couldn't go after Naruto directly, I reminded myself. Kakashi-sensei and Ino must also be safe. Though the timing itself was a surprise, the Akatsuki were not. So this is actually better than Orochimaru. We were prepared this time. They are all safe. What about them? I thought, looking back at Itachi. What the hell is he thinking? His choices made absolutely no sense. There were a million better ways to catch us off guard than attacking in the middle of a large event, where security was already tighter than normal. Why not wait for the Jinchuriki to go out on a mission of some sort, when he didn't have the protection of the entire damn village, and capture him there? Instead, because of this botched operation, the entire world knew that they were here. And from now on, every mission Naruto went on would be doubly secure. They had just ruined their chances of an easy picking. There was no way a supposed genius like Itachi wouldn't have realized something like this was going to happen. I'm speaking out loud, aren't I? Itachi Uchiha tilted his head to the side. Fascinating. Most people don't ever realize they are spilling themselves to me. They feel the paralysis. They believe that is the end of the technique. Not as effective as the Yamanaka, I'll admit, but more accurate and less expensive than getting a man drunk. I rolled my eyes. Are you quite done? Or would you like to sit here and explain why you've deliberately done things the hard way? Because I can't imagine someone of your reputation making a mistake as crass as this. His voice took on a dangerous tone. Careful, now. You've crossed into dangerous territory. He took a step forward. Some truths aren't meant to be known. Now I can't let you leave. There was only one thing to say to that. Shadow possession complete. Flames leave behind their own shadows, too. Very small ones. It had been that intimidating step forward that allowed me to take advantage of that. Manipulating my shadow while unable to move my hands to form seals was challenging, true, but monologuing, Itachi Uchiha sked, and then I saw black pinwheels on a sea of blood. The sky turned red. Crap. Shinobi prodigies never live happy lives, he said, a strange look of regret on his face. You, Shikamaru Nara, really are too smart for your own good. I was strapped down to a slanted table. Itachi Uchiha stood over me, his colors inverted in a strange mockery of himself. In one hand he held a bucket of black water, and in the other, a red cloth. I can see your soul, Shikamaru Nara. You're afraid of drowning. A reasonable fear, but we all must learn to face our fears, do we not? He leaned over me, so close our noses almost touched. It's nothing personal. You remind me of myself, actually. The cloth went over my face. The bucket dangled in the air, before everything went so horribly wrong, and then minus. I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can breathe, I can breathe, I can breathe. How much time had passed? 1 minute? 2? Oh gods, I can't breathe. Oh guts, I'm going toady. The deluge of water stopped. The cloth was yanked away from my face. Air. I gasped and retched, not caring about the bruises where the restraints had dug into my ankles and wrists where I had struggled too hard. Only that I have air, the black water is gone, I'm breathing again minus. That, he said, was 1 second of the tsukuyumi. The cloth went back over my face. Oh no, oh gods no. Only 2 days, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds left to go. Chapter 29, Shards and Splinters. The tsukuyumi. 2 days, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 58 seconds. 2 days, 23 hours, 59 minutes. 2 days, 23 hours. I didn't know where I was anymore. All I saw was blackness surrounding me, suspended by a sensation of semi-consciousness, half alive and half dead. Unless you have actually felt it, you cannot possibly understand how terrifying drowning is. The need for air is the most basic one of life, and to be cut off from that triggers one of the basest, most intrinsic fears hardwired into our brains. It takes away your humanity, your intelligence, your soul, and leaves behind nothing but the most primitive instincts your body can muster. Air minus. I would have preferred burning alive or freezing to death than drowning for 3 days straight. Or however long it felt like. It wouldn't be so bad if I was actually drowning. Because then I would black out after the first few minutes. And then it would be all over. I wouldn't have to feel or worry anymore. I would just be gone. Death isn't so bad. It's incomprehensible, the nothingness, but it's not bad. I wouldn't mind being dead, when my time came, if only so I could finally understand what non-existence really was. But I was denied even this. Allowed neither escape nor release, only suspended in animalistic desperation. Clawing, fighting, crying for air that would not come. And I could do nothing but lie here and wait for it to end. 2 days. Why me? The question popped up out of nowhere. A common one, as most people are liable to ask themselves when in a situation of undeserved suffering. But useless, except in cases where it was not meant to be rhetorical. Why me, indeed? Was he torturing me for fun, so he could show me how powerless I was? Because he couldn't possibly have any practical reason for using one of his greatest techniques, on me, a 12-year-old rookie genin, no matter how smart I was. He was trying to break me. To ruin me completely. I don't know how hard it is to keep a level head while being tortured. I suppose it varies from person to person. What I didn't know was this: observation, strategy, thinking, control of my own head minus was as instinctual to me as survival was, because thinking was living. Even if he turned me into a sack of mush, I would still be Shikamaru Nara, and I would not bow to him. To fight a technique, one must understand it first. What did I understand? It's a genjutsu. Oh, brilliant deduction. No wonder they call you a genius, I snapped to myself. Funny, my brain said. The very fact that it's a genjutsu should be all the information you need. What? It was as another submersion started that I started to appreciate how interesting this entire genjutsu was. I had never seen nor heard of something so powerful. Some things affected the regular 5 senses, but they only superficially tricked the brain. To manipulate time, one had to directly manipulate interior of the mind itself. And this entire genjutsu depended on its ability to manipulate time. He was inside my head. The bastard was inside my head. This was all inside my head. Even as my lungs filled with water and panic overtook every fiber of my body, there was still one tiny part of me that hadn't yet been conquered by my fear of death, and that was my desire to live. I knew that if I had to endure the entire thing, I would certainly go mad. I did not count madness as living. In fact, I would rather die than go on with a broken mind. It was this thought that brought me back some semblance of sanity. One fear, conquered by an even greater one. What was the point of being alive, if I wasn't going to be myself anymore minus? Hey, remember when you were talking to Anko about Orochimaru? You think something like this might do the trick? Shut up, because this couldn't be real. None of this was real. Who had the time to stand around and hold a genjutsu for 3 days straight? I was not drowning. I was not here, of course. It's a genjutsu. An illusion. It isn't real. It isn't real. This is all inside your head. Congratulations. Full marks. Are you going to focus on useful solutions? Or are you going to sit there and snark at yourself while a psychopath drowns you inside your own mind? There were two ways to disrupt a genjutsu. The first was to attack the illusion itself. All genjutsu had one thing in common: they were not real. It sounds obvious, but it's a very significant thing. Like monsters under a child's bed, all one had to do to break his grip was to force oneself to stop believing in it. That was why genjutsu targeted the areas of the brain outside of conscious control. There is no automatic switch to shut off one's eyesight, or hearing, or pain receptors, at will. Your frontal lobe might not believe in it, but as long as one part of your brain did, it's a deathly realistic nightmare, when you are sure everything's fake and now you're just trying to convince the rest of your uncooperative body to wake the fuck up. Physical harm usually worked. The natural response was to acknowledge the site of injury, and thus, acknowledge the world outside of the illusion. But certain things were strong enough that even pain didn't get rid of it completely, such as Sakura's auditory genjutsu, and Tsukuyomi controlled every sense, as well as my sense of time, which was why it was so powerful. If it's hard enough to convince your ears to stop hearing things, then it's downright impossible to convince yourself time isn't real, until you can, because I, the real me, in the real present, was still standing on solid ground, with completely dry lungs, and my shadow, minus my shadow, was still connected to him. My shadow was still connected to him. Out of the suffocating darkness I remembered, with blazing clarity, exactly where we had left off right before this all started. I could not see it, I could not feel it, but I knew, with absolute certainty, that my shadow had not abandoned me. The cage main drained chakra at a steady rate. It didn't matter if I couldn't use it in here. The fact that I still had the same exact amount of chakra since we started was damning enough to the integrity of the Tsukuyomi. 2 days, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 49 seconds remaining, he said, in the patronizing tone of a nurse giving a child a shot. He raised his arm to replace the wet cloth over my face. Ino, lend me your knowledge. Sensei, lend me your cunning. Naruto, lend me your brazen disregard for the impossible. I smiled and flared my chakra. Itachi regretted that the boy felt pain. He did not regret that he was the one causing it. You're doing very well, Shikamaru and Nara. Most people would be incoherent by now. The boy was smiling. Itachi felt his heels sting. Odd. He shouldn't be feeling anything in the Tsukuyomi. How unusual minus. I'm not Shikamaru, foolish older brother. Itachi froze. As did the entire world, the water from the bucket still suspended halfway and the stinging sensation on his heel became sharper. What? He reached out to the Nara boy again. Surely that was him. Yes, it was him. This wasn't right minus. Shikamaru holds you, said the boy. You forgot me. Itachi's stomach turned to ice. Sasuke? They thought they hid me, but they hid Choji. I thought you were smarter than that. Did you think we're the only one in the world who could use the Tsukuyomi? But when? Who did he see die? You're kidding, right? You murdered his whole family and made him watch. There was bound to be the one he loved most in there. Mother then. He always liked her best. This had to be a trick. But when Itachi tried to draw upon all the possibilities, he came up blank. The pain at his feet was definitely chakra. How did he find me? He shouldn't have any access to the outside world in here. He shouldn't even be able to speak, the boy smirked. Now for the real question. Whose Tsukuyomi is this? Mine, of course. He betrayed nothing, but somehow the boy read his blank face. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Positive? Yes. Really? Yes? The world flickered as he felt his concentration waver. The Tsukuyomi is only a genjutsu, after all. Foolish older brother, how do you know what reality is, when your life is built on lies? The stab of chakra against his feet became insistently painful, and for the first time in many years, Itachi felt the crippling poison of self-doubt again. He thought it had been beaten out of him by his captain when he was just an ANBU trainee. The hazing, the lying, the dreaded psychological tricks. Damn you, senpai. I thought I left you and your mind games behind, but apparently not. Itachi, normally the one to hold the cards, now felt a nagging fear that he was, in reality, lagging so far behind he didn't even know he was losing. Logic agreed that the chance was all too real. Chakra that was not his own, burning at his heels, even though the Tsukuyomi could neutralize even the strongest men. His victim, supposedly helpless, smiling smugly like he'd already won. It's a trap. It has to be. He could not remain here and leave himself vulnerable. The Tsukuyomi hummed and buzzed like a vibrating sheet of glass. It shattered in his face and I was free. I screamed like a wounded animal. My knees hit hard gravel. I collapsed to the ground, panting. Free. I could see colors again. Blue sky, painted buildings, green plants. He fell for it. He actually fell for it. The other way to break a genjutsu was to attack the caster. If his immersion broke, so would his illusions. Reaching Itachi from inside the Tsukuyomi was impossible. Conveniently, I'd latched onto him before it started. The cage main ensured that my chakra would be able to find him, even if I could not. A tiny spark wouldn't do any damage, but that wasn't the point. The point was to lend my lies a basis in reality. Someone you believe to be at your mercy acting uncharacteristically smugly could be dismissed as a bluff. Physical evidence, however, couldn't be ignored. I would have done the same in his situation. Only an idiot would continue walking into an obvious trap. If only the obvious trap was real. His attacks were fake, and so were mine. Psychological warfare against more of the same. It was only fair. Turns out Sasuke had the same effect on Itachi as my father's reputation had on me. At best nothing would happen. At worst he would have been ambushed between two different Tsukuyomi. There was no logical action but to err on the side of caution, and break the illusion himself, freeing me in the process. But the euphoria of winning quickly gave way to fear and anger as I took in my surroundings. Asuma-sensei and Kurenai-sensei were still dying. Choji was still here, in harm's way. And I had used up my one advantage on Itachi. He wouldn't fall for that again. My shadow tensed. I looked across the ground, to where it was still attached to Itachi Uchiha. It snapped like a rubber band, flying back at me with so much force I fell over again. In 2 strides Itachi was before me, his hand fisted in my collar. With a sharp jerk he yanked me back up to my feet and held me before him. Though I could feel his breath on my face, I kept my eyes resolutely closed this time. Sasuke was never here. You were bluffing the whole time, he realized. If there was any shock from before, it had been entirely replaced with the true discipline of a warrior minus tranquil fury laced his voice like steel. You used my brother against me, and if I did? One lie for another. After what you've done you still call him brother? You're a disgusting psychopath who gets off on watching people suffer, I spat, because I don't understand how this could possibly help your supposed goal minus. Stop, he ordered right now. I shakily drew a kunai, even though I was in zero condition to wield it. Make me. He grabbed me before I could plunge it into his gut, as I knew he would. But I refused to drop the knife, even when he twisted my wrist so hard I thought he might break it. I have my reasons, he hissed in my ear, for what you rightfully call a stupid plan that was bound to fail. And I will not tell them to you. Bugger that, I snapped. What was this for? There's nothing I could have told you, and even if my sensei came, he'd slit his own belly before betraying Naruto, you imbecile. His grip around my neck tightened. Go ahead and snap it, I thought. Even if you kill me, you've still lost. I may have made up those things about Sasuke, but you'll still lie awake fearing the day they come true for the rest of your short, miserable life. You mentally destroyed someone who only ever blindly loved you. Then you conspired to kidnap and murder a kid whose life was just starting to be something other than complete crap. And now you waste the most powerful genjutsu in existence on a genin. My voice rose to a shout. What the hell is wrong with you? My windpipe constricted beneath his fingers. Is this the end for me? But instead, his hands went slack, and he let me collapse onto the ground in an undignified heap once more. Then he began laughing. Not the crazed cackle of a monster, but the broken chuckle of a man who had forgotten what happiness was. Everything. I heard people approaching. Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Yamato's voices in a jumble of others. It occurred to me that this entire exchange, starting from the confrontation, to Kisame nearly killing Asuma-sensei and Kurenai-sensei, to Itachi's mind trip, took less than 30 seconds. May you die as you lived, I said softly, and I was surprised to hear how much malice I could pack into a polite whisper. He didn't seem to care. He was still laughing. I was asking the wrong question all along, he said. It's not if you're good enough. It's if you're too good. I bristled. What are you going on about now? His laughter died down to a rueful smile. If you really think you can do more good than harm, go ahead. Play all the games you want. But remember this, nothing in this world is completely pure, not even love. I once stood in your place and look at me now. You do not know the limits of what you are willing to do for them until you have become something even they cannot love in return. If you ever get there, then know you can never go back. The ends rarely justify the means, Shikamaru Nara. I hope you remember that. Was I hallucinating again? Kai, I whispered to myself, but he didn't disappear. Maybe I was still stuck in the Tsukuyomi. Maybe this was all a bad dream, and I would wake up at home in bed. If you're implying I'll end up like you're mad, I shot back defiantly. I would never torture children, especially not one that obviously had nothing of value to tell me. I could feel my strength fading, the unconsciousness creeping around my head. If he wanted to slit my throat now, he could. I certainly wouldn't be able to stop him, but he only shook his head. Some things cut deeper than swords. He and Kisame disappeared into my darkening fields of vision. Konoha Central Hospital. They had to suspend Asuma-sensei in a special cot because his spine was partially fractured. Nothing Tsunade couldn't heal, but still, Sasuke clenched his fists so hard his nails left little bloody crescents in the crooks of his palms. He was that angry. Asuma-sensei had gotten hurt because of them, because of him. Kurenai-sensei too. And her situation was worse. Asuma-sensei's injuries had been more severe but easier to heal. Kurenai-sensei, however, had been stabbed in the gut, and there was a chance she'd have to end up using a surrogate or adopting. Only 4 people were seriously hurt that day, if you didn't count the Chunin on firefighting duty hospitalized for smoke inhalation. Only 4. Asuma-sensei, Kurenai-sensei, Shikamaru, and another ANBU Itachi had interrogated before the fire started. They acted like it was a miracle that it hadn't been more. Miracle my ass. They're only saying that because it wasn't personal. Sasuke crossed the hallway, where he could see Choji, still blubbering. I was standing right there. We've been friends since we could walk, and I didn't do anything when those creepy eyes turned on. Sasuke, what now? Asuma-sensei and Kurenai-sensei can't do anything for at least a month, and Ino told me something was up with her sensei, too. That's all 3 of the rookie teachers gone. That was all he could get out, though, because at that moment, Ino shouted from inside the room, "He's awake! He's awake!" Immediately, Choji stopped sniffling and charged through the doorway, faster than one might expect for someone of his size. "Shikamaru! Time," Shikamaru muttered groggily. "Past 6, Ino provided. You've been out for hours. Even with my help it should have left him out of it for several days," Tsunade said in wonder. "I only got about 10 seconds, Shikamaru said. Well, more like 10 minutes, since each second was a minute. Could have been worse. His sensei looked absolutely terrible. I should have been there for you," Jiraiya snorted. "And what would you have done? I left him behind. Was that not clear?" Kakashi-sensei's voice rose. "I had Naruto and Ino with me, and instead of finding Shikamaru, I made a conscious decision to leave a teammate behind. Do I have to remind you what happened the last time I did that?" Slap. Sasuke jumped in shock. Genin were the ones who got smacked around, not seasoned Jonin. That would be like Asuma-sensei getting caned by the Hokage himself. "Listen, you neurotic fool," Jiraiya snarled. "Do you know how long it took them to find and take down 2 of our best Jonin?" Kakashi-sensei shook his head. "Less than 5 minutes. A chill fell over the room. Kakashi-sensei turned slowly to face a man Sasuke didn't recognize. "Is that true, Yamato?" Yamato nodded. "I went looking for Shikamaru as soon as you had left with your batch. In the few seconds it took me between spotting the fight and entering it, they were already gone." "And do you know what they were doing before that?" Jiraiya asked. At the silence, he answered darkly, "They went and checked the very place we were initially going to hide those kids first." Sasuke could feel his blood pounding in his ears. "Were we really that close to death?" Jiraiya crossed his arms. "So do you know what would have happened, had you chosen to take the time to go find Shikamaru? And let the ANBU take Naruto? Naruto would have been captured, Sasuke might have been killed, and either way you'd have been left with dead kids. You did the best you could realistically do in this situation. Stop beating yourself up over something you couldn't help, and just be glad that things turned out as well as they did." Jiraiya roared. "But I could have helped. I could have told those ANBU where to go, and then, would they have listened? Would they have gotten Naruto to the right place in time? If they got caught, would they have survived interrogation? Would you have gotten to Shikamaru in time? And what would you have done then? Stood there like an idiot?" Jiraiya shot the questions out, one after another. "Sometimes you have to accept that you can't be good enough." The defeated way in which one of the legendary Sannin said this seemed to destroy Naruto's sensei, but not as much as it destroyed Sasuke. He sat down on the chair by Shikamaru's bed and pulled his knees up to his chin. Sasuke was vaguely aware that Ino and Naruto were watching, but he hardly cared. He needed to get this off his chest. "He did it to me too." He didn't know why he was saying this. Maybe it was because now there was another survivor of Itachi's nightmares he could talk to, someone who might understand. The adults were still going back and forth about what was and wasn't possible, who should substitute teach the rookie genin. This was all his fault. If only he'd finished Itachi off sooner, this wouldn't be happening. So what if Naruto had been their primary target? It wasn't as if Naruto chose his life, but it was Sasuke's responsibility to finish what Itachi had started. He made me watch my family getting murdered. And I could do nothing but stand there helplessly as everyone I loved was slaughtered before my eyes over and over and over again. He cut off my mother's head and slit my father across the belly. He slashed all my aunts, uncles, cousins across the throat, even the nice old lady who lived on the edge of the compound, who would pass out sweets to me when I went by, all of them. Gone. You watched that for those 3 days? Sasuke nodded. Choji lay a sympathetic hand on his shoulder. What did he do to you? Shikamaru shrugged. Tied me down to a table, put a cloth on my face, and then poured water over me. A little scary, but not nearly as gory as yours, Naruto interrupted. A little scary? That sounds like waterboarding. Shikamaru shifted uncomfortably. It was waterboarding. He knew Itachi was bad before. The bastard murdered his entire family. Now here was another nail in his coffin. First him. Now Shikamaru. Who next? Choji? Hinata? Sasuke blanched at the thought of Hinata having to go through even a fraction of what either of them had. He tried to form words with his mouth, but he was so livid nothing came out. Nothing could describe the sheer amount of raw anger and hate that consumed him in this very moment. He's going to pay. He's going to fucking pay. The Hyuga clan compound. You are strong, Hinata. You just have no direction. Tenten's words still rang in her mind. Why does she think I'm strong? I always lose, to Niji, to my own little sister, to her. What makes her think I'm strong, when everyone else has called me weak? There were a few trees growing about the back of the Hyuga compound. Hinata poked one of them sadly. It was shorter than the rest. Maybe it had grown too slowly, or maybe it had started too late, but now it was impossible for it to get any healthier. All of the other trees around it had grown too tall and leafy to let any sunlight through to it. Hinata wished she could climb up to the top and trim the others, just a little, so that the smaller tree would be able to keep growing. The little voices in her head laughed at her. It won't help. Once a loser, always a loser. You were born weak, and you'll never be able to get better. Stop trying. I know, Hinata thought. You've told me this dozens of times. Every time you open your ugly mouth I always hear the same things. It's like you can't think of anything smarter to say. Hinata hesitated. She was surprised. She didn't consider herself a resentful person, but the way that last thought had come out, you'd think she was. And then Hinata realized that she was resentful. Resentful that her family thought she wasn't worth anything. Resentful that they sneered at her for being without any skill one moment, then told her to stop trying the next, then wondered why she didn't improve. Resentful that all her life she was called weak, all because she refused to hit her own sister. All because she wasn't as fast or as strong as a boy a year older than she was. She hated it. She hated it, and she hated them. She was angry, and she was just plain sick of it. Tenten was right. She was better than this. She ran. Away from the compound, away from the clan, away from all of their stupid expectations and judgments and insults. She just wanted to hit something. Not even the gentle fist. Just punch something, in the good, crude, old-fashioned way. Sasuke? What are you doing out here? Sasuke was standing near the rear gate, with a pack over his shoulder, that look on his face. It was pure, murderous hatred, and it terrified her. She hadn't seen it on him since months ago, before they all met Asuma-sensei. Go away, Hinata. Why? What are you doing? Like it or not, Sasuke was her teammate, just like Niji was her family, and she'd be stuck with them until circumstance otherwise dictated. Go away. She figured it out quickly enough. Itachi. You're planning to go after him. I'll say this one more time, Hinata. Go away. You can't do that, Sasuke. Didn't you see what they did to Asuma-sensei? You're not ready. We're not ready. She stepped in front of him. Are you planning to go after him alone? Did our sensei's lessons on teamwork mean nothing to you? Sasuke shoved past her dismissively. You don't understand anything. Stupid. Hinata jaw dropped. She had been called weak her whole life, and she was used to that. She didn't win fights, and she could barely keep up with Choji when running, but she wasn't stupid. Before Hinata's brain could catch up to her body, she had already pulled back her arm and let it fly as hard as she could. Her punch connected with Sasuke's face in a nice, hard, satisfying crack. Sasuke went flying backwards through the air, and landed on the ground in the dirt some 3 meters away, nursing a very obviously broken nose. He lay there in a stupor for a few seconds, then slowly sat up, staring at her in a dazed wonder. Hinata's first instinct was to apologize. Stutter out some lame excuse and cry, but her anger wasn't gone yet. Plus, she didn't feel like apologizing. What would Tenten say? Stupid am I? Well, at least I'm not the one trying to walk through a gate blockaded off by every ANBU in the village, she hissed, Byakugan flaring. Horrible memories were flooding back, of a Cloud Nine with a twisted smile, of her father screaming in anguish as her uncle died in his place. And if you even do escape, don't you know what people do to kids like us? You'll be dead in a week. If the ANBU don't bring back your head separated from your body, then some other bounty hunter will. Just hope they don't carve your eyes out from your skull first. Next time you make one of your boneheaded decisions, think about how you're not the only person on the planet, and just who else might be affected by your stupidity. Sasuke stared at her, mouth hanging open comically, shocked into speechlessness. She did a sharp pivot, and marched straight back to the Hyuga compound, leaving him still sitting in the dirt with a bloodied face. As she passed by the rear garden, the stumpy, pale little tree came back into view again, and suddenly, Hinata hated it, too. The next thing she knew, her knuckles were raw and bloodied, and nothing remained of the tree but a pile of splinters at her feet. Chapter 30. The Best Revenge. Konoha, the rear gate. Sasuke brought a hand up to his nose bewilderedly, only half aware that he should probably try to stem the bleeding. With a sharp and painful twist, he managed to realign it, but it would definitely still sting in the morning. His dark shirt was completely splattered with red, and he was fairly certain that his face didn't look much better. Above him, he heard some rasping laughter. For a second, there was a glimmer of a bone-white mask in the trees, and then it flickered out of sight again. ANBU guards. Way too many of them to walk past. On second thought, this whole plan had been very badly thrown together. Yeah, I can't leave the village looking like this. Scratch preferring Sakura or Ino over Hinata as the girl in the team. It was the quiet ones you had to watch out for. In that moment, he almost hadn't even recognized her. It was like she was bipolar, or had an alter ego, or something. Or maybe this had all been her from the very beginning. Sasuke suddenly realized how much girls terrified him. You didn't see them coming. He felt as if he was back in the academy again. One moment you thought you had found a good spot to eat your lunch in peace, and the next, they were all surrounding you begging you to marry them. Except that Hinata had punched him in the nose instead. One moment, he had thought he was home free, if Hinata was the only person who was going to chase after him, and the next, he was lying sprawled in the dirt with blood all over the front of his shirt. You're going to get yourself killed, Sasuke, she had said, or something along those lines. And it was true. Well, maybe Konoha would be a little more forgiving if they caught him, when they caught him, since, after all, he was a genin. And he really wasn't betraying the village as much as he was just being rash and going after an enemy without any backup or proper training. But now that logic had returned to him, it was apparent that he wasn't S-rank yet, which made him pretty angry, since he was almost 13, and at this age Itachi had been a few months away from ANBU captain. Why can't I ever be good enough? At this rate, I'll never beat Itachi. But he had to defeat Itachi. This wasn't just revenge anymore. Every day that man was still alive was another day some innocent person was in danger. There was no honor in letting a criminal run free and unpunished. If he himself did not exercise justice, how could he expect others to do the same? He decided to head home and wait for another day. Only, instead of heading home, he found his feet taking him over to Choji's house instead. He didn't even know he was heading there until he found himself before the Akimichi clan compound, which was weird because he could easily deal with a messed up nose by himself, and it wasn't as if he already ate dinner there every day, anyway. What happened? Sasuke closed his eyes. It was my fault. Got you pretty bad, didn't he? Sasuke corrected, thankfully accepting the ice pack. What? Choji asked. You insult Naruto or something? Ino's been super overprotective of the boys ever since, you know. I didn't insult Naruto, Sasuke said, but I might have accidentally called Hinata dumb in a fit of immature anger. Choji put down his bag of chips slowly. Oh, you did not. I did. That's why I said it was my fault. Choji sat down. I think you better tell me the whole story here. So he did. And Choji sat there and listened. He never talked or argued or anything. Just listened with the same kind of quiet acceptance that Asuma-sensei did. All of Team 10 was like this every time he acted like an asshole, and it never failed to make him feel like the scum of the earth. Today, with Nara, had been the first time one of them had ever responded with anything other than total understanding. And I get why it's such a stupid idea, but what the hell can I do? Sit here while he goes off and ruins more lives? No response from Choji's end except for a krntch of chipped crumbs and wadded up foil bags. Finally he said, if you go after him when you're clearly not ready, you'll just be another casualty. Staying here doesn't mean sitting here. We can keep training, but it's not enough. It's never enough. Didn't you see what they did to Asuma-sensei? He's too strong. Sasuke slammed his fist against the wall. At this rate, I'll never beat him. What's the point of having friends if... He let his arms drop to his sides. I'm sorry, Choji. I don't mean to disrespect any of you. You've made my life more tolerable, and I wouldn't give any of that up. But how can I just stay weak? You guys might as well be open targets. Choji put a hand on his shoulder. You're not weak, Sasuke. Compared to him, I am. He's strong, but he's alone. He's got that fish guy with him, and that's it. We'll get stronger together, Sasuke. And we'll beat him together. You can give him the finishing blow, but before that, we'll show him exactly what he's been missing all these years as a rogue nin. We'll remind him that he has no friends, and we'll let him know how happy he could have been if he just stayed in the village like a normal person. I guarantee that will hurt him more than any torture. Sasuke swallowed. Okay, good. We'll find Hinata and you can apologize later. Wanna spend the night? The question came out of nowhere, as if they had just spent the past 5 minutes watching a cool movie instead of plotting how to murder someone. Sasuke was just glad that Choji was very good at pretending things were normal. No, said Sasuke's pride. Yes, the best revenge, after all, was living well. Training Ground 23R. Naruto sat down in Yamato's nest of brambles and closed his eyes. In a short moment, he was face to face with the Kyuubi again. The fox still regarded him with a heavy mix of disgust and suspicion, but whatever anger it used to direct at him was now being aimed at the Akatsuki guys instead. Naruto hoped that maybe in the future, it would be something other than mutual hatred that ensured their friendship, but for now, a grudging cooperation was the best he could hope for. Well? Aren't you going to give me your chakra? Naruto asked. Of course, the fox snarled, if you want to die. If you don't give me your chakra, I'm really going to die. The fox let out a bark of what might have passed as laughter for a demonic mass of chakra. Suit yourself, then, and Naruto's body flooded with what must have been liquid fire. He screamed out loud, it hurt so goddamn much. And the more he resisted, the worse the pain got, until Naruto thought he'd finally snap for sure. If he hadn't known better, he'd say the fox was trying to kill him. Maybe it was, but Naruto held on, against his better judgment, and all of a sudden the pain disappeared. He pasted on a cocky grin and shouted at the fox, that the worst you can do. His false confidence, however, was quickly wiped away with the fox's ugly leer. Naruto didn't know how just one facial expression could promise so much hurt. Not by a long shot. Of course, his big mouth had to go, then why'd you stop? If Naruto could actually see the top of the fox's head, it was probably rolling its eyes right now. If I had gone any further your chakra system would have overloaded, and then you'd be left as burned up as your idiot teacher. And while that's all fine and dandy with me, it leaves the both of us vulnerable to those Akatsuki creeps. Naruto wrinkled his nose. Kakashi-sensei isn't an idiot. He is a human, ergo, he is an idiot. You got caught by humans, therefore what are you? Naruto was slapped by a biting gust of wind, and at the same time the pain returned tenfold, and then he was staring up into Yamato's terrified face. Jiraiya was staring open-mouthed, shaking his head in disbelief. What? He asked. Yamato was the first to snap out of his state. The first tail, he murmured. Naruto turned around, and sure enough, there was a big concentrated stripe of scorched earth extending out from behind him. He jumped up in victory. Ha ha! Take that, you dumb fox! You said I couldn't do it! He yelled at the sky. You were screaming, Yamato told him, and Naruto's dance was cut short. I wanted to run in there and grab you. You were screaming like the world was going to end and you were going to die. Jiraiya stopped me. Naruto wrinkled his nose at the newcomer. Wait, I know you! You're that guy Kakashi-sensei left with, to find Tsunade. Jiraiya grinned and struck a pose. The one and only gallant Jiraiya, to you. Sage of toads and master of everything. So bow down and pay your respects, whatever, old man. Naruto crossed his arms and turned away with his nose in the air. Dogs are better than toads anyway. Jiraiya's jaw fell open in horror. Yamato was rolling on the ground. You did not just say that. Say what? That dogs are better than toads? Naruto asked again. Jiraiya sank to his knees, cradling his head in his hands. Oh gods, he's turned you. Naruto didn't know what to make of that, so he just cleared his throat. Yeah, whatever. Why are you here, old man? At this, Jiraiya pulled himself off the ground and made himself respectable again. Ah. That is a more serious matter. Same reason why we're making you train with the fox early. We can't risk anything happening to you, and given the level of our opponents, a standard ANBU squad is no longer good enough. Which is why you're moving in with me. Naruto tilted his head to the side. It sounded too good to be true. As in your house? Yes. An actual house, not your little apartment anymore. What's the catch? I can't let you out of my sight. Like a prisoner. But it's not like I'll be holding your hand crossing the street. That would be overbearing. Just know that you will be shadowed. I'll go over a code system with you, if you want to get some privacy. Will this be forever? Naruto couldn't help asking. Jiraiya surveyed the training grounds. At least until you get the 9th tail down. By then, hopefully, your whole team will be enough to keep you safe. You're making good progress, but you've got a long way to go, kid. Naruto scratched the back of his head. Was it that bad? It will only get worse, Jiraiya muttered. This is how all Jinchuriki must learn to master their tailed beasts. Consistent exposure to the poisonous chakra, pushing your body to its limits, until you can finally take it, or die in the process. Most don't, seeing as the vessels are specifically chosen to be compatible, but I've heard of it happening a few times before. When desperate villages attempt to force an incompatible host, that's just the same as training to run long distances. Naruto said. Apart from the whole dying thing. But Guy and Lee do it all the time. You run until you drop, and then the next day, you run that same amount plus another step. That fox ain't got nothing on me. I'm glad to hear that, Jiraiya said, leading him inside, because each successive tale is said to be 10 times worse than the last. The road is long and hard for Jinchuriki, and as the holder of the Kyuubi, yours will be the worst of all. Naruto folded his hands behind his head. Well, it's a very good thing I'm not a wimp, right? Jiraiya ruffled his hair. That's right, Naruto. The Nara clan compound. Smack. I hissed in pain as Kakashi-sensei kicked the back of my knee. This fight was grossly unfair. Kakashi-sensei was already difficult enough without being blindfolded. But I'd insisted on this, learning to fight while vision impaired. I wasn't going to let my fate hinge on circumstance, and with Kakashi-sensei wobbling back and forth between silently blaming himself for a thing he couldn't have controlled and training, I preferred the latter. According to Ino, people who grew up in harsh conditions associated love with brutally ensuring our survival. You will live, he told all of us. You will live, because you have to. I didn't know if I was going to be that lucky if we met again, so this was the alternative. I couldn't let Itachi Uchiha trap me twice. A beastly part of me wanted to do nothing more than to personally hunt down each and every one of those guys. I don't know what held me back. Was it Enko's voice, telling me if I didn't stop being a control freak I'd drive myself madder than the Tsukuyami? Was it Itachi's haunted laughter, giving me a horrifying glimpse of what I'd callously thought was a good eternity for Orochimaru, or myself? I felt the telltale flutter of air signaling a presence next to my cheek, and ducked. The punch passed over my head harmlessly. Now I know where you are. I extended my hand minus, whump. An elbow into my gut. Foot, beneath my knees, flip. I flew through the air and hit the ground, barely managing to break my fall. Harder than it sounds, when you don't know where the floor is. Ino was faring better than me at this. I wasn't one bit surprised. Her whole family was made up of natural sensors, after all. Perhaps, when she finally mastered her family's mental communication techniques, we might stand a chance after all. I knew most people didn't regard Ino as very dangerous, compared to a powerhouse like Naruto or someone with my track record, but when it came to strange Nin with unknown powers, she was my greatest ally. You wouldn't be able to tell, based on rank alone. No one from our group made it to Chunin, as Kakashi-sensei predicted. We had been surprised to find out, however, that everyone who made it past the second test was eligible for a field promotion at the discretion of their Jonin-sensei, meaning none of us had to take the exams a second time. I don't know how that concession had been wrangled out of the Hokage, but I imagine it must have involved a lot of guilt-tripping. Not that it would help Team 7 anytime soon. Kakashi-sensei would keep us genin forever if he could. As I sat down to rest, I couldn't help but think about how sharply my personal freedom had decreased. Orochimaru could be pointed to a fluke, but 2 missing Nin were no joke. Even if I had survived both encounters, my parents and Kakashi-sensei were adamant that there would not be a third. Not that they could protect me forever, but I suppose I appreciated their sentiment. The Akatsuki struck closer to home than Orochimaru. With Orochimaru, Sasuke was the main goal. It was just bad timing that we were in the same location. It was the opposite with the Akatsuki. They were actively trying to kill Naruto, and despite the fact that Itachi Uchiha was involved, he didn't seem too interested in going after Sasuke. And it could be worse, I guess. I could be like Sasuke. Or Naruto. I knew he was happy that he finally had a parentish figure, even if Jiraiya was more like the irresponsible uncle than a father. But at the same time, I could see his annoyance at having to be protected all the time. I knew Naruto's type. In his mind he was supposed to be the one standing in front, protecting his friends. It must be hard for him to be told that until he was ready, the only way to protect his friends was to hide in the back. We rarely saw Naruto outside of our regular team meetings anymore. All of his waking moments were now spent in Yamato's special training. As if we were stupid enough to believe it was anything other than mastering the Kyuubi. Ino retreated to her clan techniques in her private time, and, as I was forbidden from my special training, continued to expand my network. I found an ally with Ebisu, who was thankful for my help in keeping the Konohamaru Corps in line. Beneath his dour exterior, Ebisu was a skilled, trustworthy man. At least Team 7 still did missions together. All of them inside the village, or within running distance of the walls. I looked forward to those very much, even if they were just menial C ranks in the mission office. It made me feel like everything was normal, just the four of us in Team 7 causing the usual trouble. I later learned from Choji that during this time period, Teams 8 and 10 had been temporarily shuffled over under Reidu and Ginma while waiting for Asuma-sensei and Kurenai-sensei to recover. Team 7 only managed to stay together because Kakashi-sensei bribed every chunin in the front office with perfect and neat reports for a week. It turned out he was capable of writing legibly when he tried, if they misplaced the Jonin instructor transfer sheets. The Sandaime could have forced a transfer without the papers, if he really wanted to, but he was the sort of man to pick his battles wisely, and I bet arguing with Kakashi-sensei wasn't worth it. Better to indulge his whims, because even in his weakened state, Kakashi-sensei was entirely capable of training us to death. Also, they didn't think anyone could get too hurt doing paperwork. I wish I had a funny they were so very wrong story involving to tell you, but I don't. We behaved ourselves. Unless you counted that one time involving the coffee machine, Tora, and food coloring, but that was hardly my fault. Like a true friend, however, I took the blame for what had been Izumo and Kotetsu's idea. In return, they let me help them with some of their higher clearance work, even though I was only a genin. One of my favorite duties was reading classified mission reports before marking up the important bits with black highlighter. Those were fun. And useful. I would like to reiterate that I stood up for Izumo and Kotetsu because I liked them, and not because of any strategic maneuvering on my part. That I knew the Hokage would let me off lightly because I was of lower rank and had recently undergone a traumatic experience is only coincidental and highly irrelevant. Amigekure, Itachi. I see you have returned empty-handed, Pain said. Konoha is well fortified, Itachi shrugged. This was the truth. Their Jinchuriki were far better watched over than the rogue travelers you sent the others to get. Our plan did work, right up until the very end, when one of their own Jonin made a snap decision to completely disregard their own regulations. There's always one of those guys in every village, Deidara harumphed. Like you, for example, said Sasori. You're just jealous because we captured ours and you didn't. Haiden yelled. Is this true, Kisame? Pain asked, completely ignoring the others. Yeah, said Kisame. We spied on a bunch of ANBU beforehand, and again when we started the fire. Itachi might have made a mistake, Conan said coolly. I doubt it, said Pain. Itachi would not make mistakes. Even the gods fear Lady Luck, said Itachi. It just so happens that the Kyuubi Jinchuriki's Jonin sensei practically lives on psychological warfare and insubordination, and will continue to do so as long as his success rate prevents him from being harshly disciplined. And I would know. I trained and worked with him for a number of years. He does not cause as much fear as I do, but he is annoying enough to compensate. Even the most intelligent of shinobi can feel stupid after facing his traps, and thus lose their minds to frustration. I have a feeling his students will end up being the same. Shikamaru and Nara, you are lucky I planned to leave you out of my report. What I did to you was bad enough. What our warlike world will do to you is worse. You are telling me one Jonin was enough to override the decisions of the Hokage and his ANBU? Pain asked. Somehow I think you are making excuses. I am making excuses. That does not mean they are lies, said Itachi. You've heard his name, but until you've trained under him personally you cannot possibly hope to understand him. He argues like an aged politician and whines with all the illogical stubbornness of a spoiled 5-year-old. Better to exaggerate someone he knew could take care of himself, than shift the blame on a child he'd already wronged. Shikamaru Nara. He was already learning his teacher's tricks better than Itachi ever had. Their encounter still chilled Itachi at night, when he lay awake with nothing but his own dark thoughts to keep him company. He knew what he was doing, just as I knew what I was doing, attacking his fears. For so long he'd fantasized about Sasuke giving him a pure death. The one good thing he might gain from all this. Now, even that tiny joy was taken from him. He could not banish the thought of his younger brother destroying him with its Kyuumi instead of a sword, leaving him a life of misery instead of dying a quick, clean death. Sasuke might very well do that. I would deserve it. That hurt more than anything else. And besides, the attack wasn't completely unsuccessful, Kisame grinned. We managed to severely injure two Jonin-sensei, the Hokage's son and his girlfriend. They're not dating, Itachi corrected Kisame. They've been not dating since I was a genin. The conversation was going nowhere, so Pain dismissed everyone. For a moment Itachi had been hopeful that the order included him, but then he saw the figure lurking in the back, glaring at him. Sighing, he abandoned his futile plan to escape. Itachi knew his mysterious benefactor possessed the Sharingan, though he'd only ever seen one of the man's eyes at a time. What his face was like was unknown. For all Itachi knew, he was actually a very tall woman using a jutsu to change her voice. You're a frightfully good actor, Itachi, said Madara Tobi. One might almost believe you when you claim you did not fail on purpose. The hairs on the back of Itachi's neck stood up, though he hardly showed it. No sense in lying. He was dead either way. I did. Madara Tobi seemed surprised at his willing admission. You swore to serve the Akatsuki. Let's see if I can talk my way out of this one. And in return, you swore to leave Konoha for last. I even murdered my own clan to seal the deal, and this is how you honor your word. By attacking the children first. I betrayed no one, because we were not supposed to be there in the first place. Not yet. That does not change the fact that you sabotaged a mission you were directly ordered to complete, Madara Tobi argued. I sabotaged nothing, Itachi insisted tonelessly. Play the reasonable one here. And you might just walk out of this alive. Your direct order conflicted with indifferent one, to uphold my deal to you. I determined that our long-term contract was more important than this short-term order, and took steps to ensure the durability of our bargain. That is a highly diplomatic way of describing blatant failure, Madara Tobi commented. Kill me if you like, Itachi shrugged nonchalantly, even though on the inside he wanted oh so desperately to live. It's not about the value of my own life. But I cannot die yet. That honor must go to Sasuke, and Sasuke alone. It won't make a difference. Konoha knows we are here and they are training the boy as we speak. You have no choice but to delay your attack on Konoha anyway. All you can hope to do now is either eliminate me for good, or trust that I will continue to help you regarding the Jinchuriki from all the other villages. Madara Tobi glared at him. Finally, he snarled, I don't want to see this behavior from you again. Dismissed. He was right, you know. About your impatience, Black Zetsu said quietly. Her? Its? Voice stripped in half-high, half-low tones, like it was several people speaking at once. It reminded Tobi of water. Not clear, flowing streams, but rancid, stagnant puddles in a leaky sewer. It's a wonder you're still alive, honestly. Shut up, Tobi muttered. Just shut up. Well, Konoha is now preparing yet another child for war. If war is what they want, war is what they shall have. And you call me impatient? Even I can tell we're not ready yet, not with the Akatsuki, you numbskull. With each other. It has been a generation. Another shinobi war was bound to happen sooner or later. Konoha got lucky once, avoiding death by Sand Snake. But their good fortune won't last. No, I suppose not, said Tobi. Very well. I'll have a word with the Mizukage. The Miss Nin have always been good at keeping quiet. Yes, and policing each other, as well. Dead men tell no tales, Tobi snorted. You know I hate those bastards more than any of the villages. Even more than IWA? Black Zetsu asked, like Hishiat didn't know the answer already. It knew the story even if it hadn't been there with him, because it knew everything. Every memory of the world found its way home to that inky black shadow sooner or later. Yes, said Tobi. Even more than IWA. His broken bones were a world away now. He ran a hand over the lumpy, malformed half of his body, wondering if she would be disgusted with him if she could see him now. Only the dreams of the clearing, the ring of scowling Jonin, the blood and the death remained. Myself, I don't care. The wounds IWA gave me have healed. The wounds Kiri gave me will not.